Shalom and blessings, warriors of Yahuwah and truth. I'm going to continue reading Spiritual Captivity. I believe we were on video 9. I am on BYNV sample text, Daniel, Malachi, and Nazarene introduction. The following is a sample text from the BYNV for English readers. Names and places are rendered without the vowel changes of the Masoretes that altered the Ibrahim phonology after the 8th century CE sect of Karaitism. Get the complete BYNV from Amazon by visiting Lou White's author page. Daniel, my judge is Elohim. And we're starting with 1. In the 3rd year of the reign of the Yahuyakim, king of Yehuda, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babel, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. And Yahuwah gave Yahuyakim, king of Yehuda, into his hand, with some of the utensils of the house of Elohim, which he brought to the land of Shinar, to the house of his mighty one. And he brought the utensils into the treasure house of his mighty one. And the king said to Ashpenaz, the chief of his eunuchs, to bring some of the children of Yasharal, and some of the king's descendants, and some of the nobles, young men, in whom there was no blemish, but good-looking, having insight in all wisdom, having knowledge and capable of learning, equipped to stand in the king's palace, and to teach them the writing and speech of... And speak of the Chaldeans, the writings and the speech. And the king appointed for them a daily ration of the king's food and of the wine which he drank, and 3 years of training for them, so that at the end thereof they should stand before the king. Now among them were the sons of Yehuda, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. And the chief of the eunuchs gave them names, for he called Daniel Belshazzar, and Hananiah, Shadrach, and Meshach, and would not defile himself with, Meshach and Azariah and Abednego. Likely they were made eunuchs. But Daniel laid it upon his heart that he would not defile himself with a portion of the king's food, nor with the wine which he drank. So he asked from the chief of the eunuchs not to defile him. Sorry about that. Not to defile himself. And Elohim granted Daniel kindness and compassion from the chief of the eunuchs. But the chief of the eunuchs said to Daniel, I fear my Adonai the king, who has appointed your food and drink. For why should he see your faces looking worse than the young men who are your age? Then you would make my head guilty before the king. And Daniel said to the overseer, whom the chief of the eunuchs had set over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, please try your servants for 10 yomim, 10 days, and let them give us vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then let our appearances be examined before you, and the appearances of the young men who eat the portion of the king's food, and do with your servants as you see fit. And he listened to them in this matter, and tried them 10 yomim, 10 days. And at the end of 10 yomim, their appearances looked better and fatter in flesh than all the young men who ate the portion of the king's food. And it came to be that the overseer took away their portion of food, and the wine they were to drink, and gave them vegetables. As for these 4 young men, Elohim gave them knowledge and skill in all learning and wisdom, and Daniel had understanding in all visions and dreams. And at the end of the Yomim, when the king had said that they should be brought in, the chief of the eunuchs brought them in before Nebuchadnezzar, and the king spoke with them, and none among them all were found like Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So they stood before the king, and in any word of wisdom and understanding, about which the king examined them. He found them 10 times better than all the magicians, the astrologers who were in all his reign. Sorry. And Daniel continued until the first year of the king, Koresh. Daniel 2. And in the second year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams, and his ruach was so troubled that his sleep left him. And the king gave orders to call the magicians and the astrologers and the practitioners of witchcraft and the Chaldeans to declare to the king his dreams. So they came and stood before the king. And the king said to them, I have had a dream, and my ruach is troubled to know the dream. And the Chaldeans spoke to the king in Aramaic. O king, live forever. Relate the dream to your servants, and we shall reveal the interpretation. The king answered and said to the Chaldeans, My decision is firm. If you do not make known the dream and its interpretation to me, your limbs shall be taken from you, and your houses made dunghills. But if you reveal the dream and its interpretation, you shall receive gifts and rewards and great esteem from me. So reveal to me the dream and its interpretation. They answered again and said, Let the king relate to his servants the dream, and we shall reveal its interpretation. The king answered and said, I know for certain that you would gain time, because you see that my decision is firm. If you do not make known the dream to me, there is only one decree for you. For you have agreed to speak lying and corrupt words before me till the time has changed. So relate the dream to me, then I shall know that you shall reveal its interpretation for me. The Chaldeans answered the king and said, There is no one on Eretz, on the earth, who is able to reveal the matter of the king, because no king, Adonai, or ruler has ever asked a matter like this of any magician or astrologer or Chaldean. And the matter that the king is asking is difficult, and there is no other who is able to reveal it to the king except for Elohim, whose dwelling is not with flesh. Because of this, the king was enraged and very angry, and gave orders to destroy all the wise ones of Babel. So the decree went out, and they began killing the wise ones. And they sought Daniel and his companions to kill them. Then, with the counsel and wisdom, Daniel answered Arioch, the chief of the king's guard, who had gone out to kill the wise ones of Babel. He answered and said to Arioch, the king's officer, Why is the decree from the king so urgent? So Arioch made the decision known to Daniel, and Daniel went in and asked the king to give him time, and he would show the king the interpretation. Then Daniel went to his house and made the decision known to Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his companions, to seek compassion from the Allah of the Shamayim concerning this secret, so that Daniel and his companions should not perish with the rest of the wise ones of Babel. Then the secret was revealed to Daniel in a layla, or a night vision. And Daniel blessed the Allah of Shamayim, heaven. Daniel responded and said, Blessed be the name of Allah forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. And he changed the times and the seasons. He removes kings and raises up kings. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to those who possess understanding. He reveals deep and secret things. He knows what is in the darkness, and light dwells with him. I thank you and praise you, Allah of my fathers. You have given me wisdom and might, and have now made known to me what we asked of you. For you have made known to us the king's matter. So Daniel went to Arioch, whom the king had appointed to destroy the wise ones of Babel. He went and said this to him, Do not destroy the wise ones of Babel. Bring me in before the king, and I shall show the interpretation to the king. Then Arioch brought Daniel in a hurry before the king, and said thus to him, I have found a man among the sons of the exile of Yehuda, who does make known to the king the interpretation. The king answered and said to Daniel, whose name was Belshazzar, Are you able to make known to me the dream which I have seen and its interpretation? Daniel answered before the king and said, The secret which the king is asking, the wise ones, the astrologers, the magicians, and the diviners, are unable to show it to the king. But there is an Allah in the Shamayim who reveals secrets, and he has made known to King Nebuchadnezzar what is to be in the latter Yomim, or days. Your dream and the visions your had upon your bed were these. As for you, king, on your bed your thoughts came up. What is going to take place after this? And he who reveals secrets has made known to you what shall be. As for me, this secret has not been revealed to me, because I have more wisdom than anyone living. But for our sakes, who make known the interpretation to the king, and that you should know the thoughts of your heart. You, king, were looking on and saw a great image. This great image, and its shining excellent, was standing before you, and its form was awesome. This image's head was of fine gold, its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet partly of iron and partly of clay. You were looking on until a stone was cut out without hands, and it smote the image on its feet of iron and clay, and broke them in pieces. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold were crushed together, and became like chaff from the summer threshing floors, and the wind took them away, so that no trace of them was found. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain, and filled all the earth. This is the dream, and its interpretation we declare before the king. You, king, are king of kings. For the Allah of the Shamayim has given you a reign, power, and strength, and preciousness. And wherefore the children of men dwell, or the beasts of the field and the birds of the Shamayim, he has given them into your hand, and has made you ruler over them all. You are the head of gold, and after you rises up another reign lower than yours, and another third reign of bronze that rules over the earth, or rules over all the earth. And the fourth reign is as strong as iron, because iron crushes and shatters all. So like iron that breaks in pieces, it crushes and breaks all these. Rome through the uniting of all Gaiam. NWO. Yet as you saw the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, the reign is to be divided. But the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, the reign is to be divided, but some of the strength of the iron is to be in it, because you saw the iron mixed with muddy clay. And as the toes of the feet were partly of iron and partly of clay, so the reign is partly strong and partly brittle. And as you saw iron mixed with muddy clay, they are mixing themselves with the seed of men. But they are not clinging to each other, even as iron does not mix with clay. And in the Yomim of these kings, the Allah of the Shamayim, the heaven, shall set up a reign which shall never be destroyed, nor the reign pass on to other people. It crushes the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold. It's some weird number. It's okay.
I was gonna ask.
What, honey?
Oh, I wanted you to see that thing. Oh,
Okay, 1 second. Sorry, guys. Okay. And, as you saw iron mixed with muddy clay, they are mixing themselves with the seed of men, but they are not clinging to each other, even as iron does not mix with clay. And in the Yomim of these kings, the Allah of the Shamayim shall set up a reign which shall never be destroyed, nor the reign pass on to other people. It crushes and puts to an end all these reigns, and it shall stand forever. Because you saw that the stone was cut out of the mountain without hands, and that it crushed the iron, the bronze, the clay, the silver, and the gold, the great Allah has made known to the king what shall be after this. And the dream is true, and its interpretation is trustworthy. Then King Nebuchadnezzar fell on his face and did obedience before Daniel, and gave orders to present to him an offering and incense. The king answered Daniel and said, Truly, your Allah is the Allah of Elohim, or the Allah of Elohim, Adonai of kings, and a revealer of secrets, since you were able to reveal the secret. Then the king made Daniel great, and gave him many gifts, and made him ruler over all the province of Babel, and chief of the nobles, over all the wise ones of Babel. And Daniel asked of the king, and he said, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, he set them over the work of the province of Babel, and Daniel in the gate of the king. Daniel 3. Nebuchadnezzar the king made Selem, or image, of gold, whose height was 60 cubits and its width 6 cubits. And he set it up in the plain of Dura in the province of Babel. And the king Nebuchadnezzar sent word to gather together the viceroys, the nobles, and the governors, the counselors, the treasurers, the judges, the magistrates, and all the officials of the provinces to come to the dedication of the image which King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then the viceroys, the nobles, and the governors, the counselors, the treasurers, the judges, the magistrates, and all the officials of the provinces gathered together for the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. And they stood before the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then a herald loudly claimed, "To you it is commanded, O people, Goyim, and languages, that as soon as you hear the sound of the horn, the flute, the zither, the lyre, the harp, the pipes, and all kinds of instruments playing the anthem, you shall fall down and do obedience to the gold image that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. And whoever does not fall down and do obedience is immediately thrown into the midst of the burning furnace of fire." So as soon as all the people heard the sound of the horn, the flute, the zither, the lyre, the harp, all kinds of instruments, all the people, Goyim, which are nations, and languages, fell down and did obedience to the gold image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Thereupon, at that time, certain Chaldeans came forward and accused the Yahudim. They spoke and said to King Nebuchadnezzar, "O king, live forever. You, O king, have made a decree that everyone who hears the sound of the horn, the flute, the zither, the lyre, the harp, the pipes, and all kinds of instruments shall fall down and do obedience to the gold image. And whoever does not fall down and do obedience is thrown into the midst of a burning furnace of fire. There are certain Yahudim whom you have set over the work of the province of Babel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, pay no heed to you. They do not serve your Elohim, and they are not doing obedience to the gold image which you have set up." Then Nebuchadnezzar, in rage and wrath, gave orders to bring Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And they brought these men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar spoke and said to them, "Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my Elohim, and you do not do obedience to the gold image which I have set up? Now, if you are ready when you hear the sound of the horn, the flute, the zither, the lyre, the harp, the pipes, and all kinds of instruments, and you fall down and do obedience to the image which I have made, good. But if you do not do obedience, you are immediately thrown into the midst of the burning furnace of fire. And who is the Allah who does deliver you from my hands?" Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, "O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. For if so, our Allah whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning furnace of fire and from your hand, king. He does deliver. But if not, let it be known to you, king, that we do not serve your Elohim, nor do we do obedience in the gold image which you have set up." Then Nebuchadnezzar was filled with wrath, and the expression on his face changed towards Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. He responded and gave orders that they heat the furnace 7 times more than it was usually to heat it. And he commanded some of the strongest men of his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the burning furnace of fire. So these men were bound in their coats, their trousers, and their turbans, and their other garments, and were thrown into the midst of the burning furnace of fire. Thereupon, because the king's order was urgent, and the furnace exceedingly hot, the flame of the fire killed those men who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, fell down, bound into the midst of the burning furnace of fire. Then King Nebuchadnezzar was amazed, and stood in haste, and spoke and said to his counselors, Did we not throw 3 men bound into the midst of the fire?" They answered and said to the king, "Certainly, O king." He answered and said, "Look, I see 4 men loose walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt, and the form of the 4th is like the Son of Allah. Then Nebuchadnezzar went near the mouth of the burning furnace of fire. He spoke and said, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, services of the highest one of Allah, come out and come here. Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came from the midst of the fire, and the viceroys, the nobles, and the governors, and the king's counselors gathered together, seeing these men on whose bodies the fire had no power, and the hair on their heads was not singed, nor were their garments changed, nor did the smell of fire come on them. Nebuchadnezzar responded and said, Blessed be the Allah of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who sent his messengers and delivered his servants who trusted in him, and changed the king's orders and gave up their bodies that they should not serve nor do obedience to any Allah except their own Allah. Therefore, I make a decree that whoever of any people, nation, or language who speaks any lawless against the Allah of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, his limbs shall be taken and his house made a dunghill, because there is no other Allah who is able to deliver like this. Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the province of Babel. In my next lesson, I will be reading Daniel 4 through Daniel 6. And yeah, I'll probably split this into like 4 lessons. Yeah. I hope everybody enjoyed this lesson. It's just to get people that we're trying to get to understand our faith. Some of them have probably read the scriptures, some probably have not, but the scriptures sounds a lot smoother with the rightful names in scripture. I love you all, warriors of Yahuwah and the truth, my brothers and sisters. Shalom.